Check, check, check. Check, check. Hey, hey.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to invite us to find seats. I know people will trickle in but we're going to get started. We are excited that you are with us this morning. Whether you're with us in person or online streaming, we are glad that you're with us this morning to hear from Paul Young. Just a few housekeeping questions, things. We will take questions at the end. If you have a question you're watching online, just put it in the chat and we'll make sure your question's heard. If you're in the room, we ask that you come to the microphone so that you can be heard. I know it seems like a small group, but when you come to the microphone, we can make sure that everyone streaming can hear that. Just a little bit about our speakers. So Paul Young currently serves as the president and CEO of the Downtown Memphis Commission. Before that, he was the director of housing and community development for the city of Memphis. And before that, he was the director of legislative affairs for Shelby County Mayor's office. This morning, I jokingly told him he's my second favorite young child. His sister, Dorcas Young Griffin, was my previous boss. So we are excited that Paul is with us this morning. He is no stranger to Calvary, to downtown, to church life. So Paul's going to share with us this morning about downtown and where we're going with that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Zach. Can everybody hear me? Is the mic working? All right, I think it is. So thank you guys for having me here today. I am excited to talk to you all about downtown. I like to start off presentations like this and just tell you a little bit about myself before I dive into the mechanics of the work that we do. So as mentioned, I've been working in government for a little while now, but I think it's important to take it back a little bit. I'm born and raised from Memphis. I grew up over in the Oak Haven area, over there near the airport. My parents are preachers here, Reverend William and Diane Young. They have a church called the Healing Center, so I'm a PK, grew up in the church all my life. And they have focused a lot of their ministry on mental health, a lot of alignment with what happens at this church, and so I really appreciate what you all do for the citizens of our community, the residents in our community. And so for me, I graduated from high school in '97, went to college in Knoxville, so I went to UT Knox, go Vols, came back and went to grad school at the University of Memphis, and so I'm a Tiger as well, so I get to root for both. But after I graduated from undergrad, I was at church one Sunday, and my mom was preaching a sermon. And this was around the time that the book, The Purpose-Driven Life, had come out, and some of you may remember that book. I can't remember, I know Warren was his name, I can't remember the full name, but Warren wrote the book. And during this time, I was at a crossroads. So many of my friends, I had just graduated, couldn't find a job, was staying with my parents, working in retail, and a lot of my friends had moved to New York. Had one that was in Atlanta, LA, they were all these cool places. And I remember distinctly one of my friends saying, "Hey man, why are you going back to Memphis, man? You're losing in life. You need to come out here with me." He was in LA. And so I said, "I don't know, man, I just want to be in Memphis. I feel like that's where I need to be." And so fast forward to my mom preaching this sermon, and so when she was preaching about the purpose-driven life, she said, God's purpose for your life will never be for you. It will always be for somebody else. And so I took that statement, and she did a whole sermon around that whole premise, But I took that statement and I tried to apply it to my life. And I said, all right, what things do I like? I had an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering. Didn't really like it. I got into about my junior year, and the program requirements were so different than all the other degree programs. I was like, I may as well finish. But I knew I didn't really love engineering. And so I went home that night and I started looking on the University of Memphis website, just looking at master's program because I couldn't find the job I wanted, so I may as well go back to school. And I saw city and regional planning, didn't really know what that meant, but under that I saw community development as kind of a subheading under city and regional planning. And so I said, that seems like, I didn't know what it was, but it seems like developing community. And I knew I kind of liked real estate. I went and got a real estate license. And I enrolled in the program that night, and the rest is history. I worked as an intern in the planning department. This was around 2003 while I was in planning school. And then since that time, I've worked in a number of different jobs, from a nonprofit in New York that supported community development to a minority developer here in the city, Archie Willis and ComCap. Some of you may know Archie Willis, and we were involved with a lot of the Hope 6 redevelopment projects in downtown and the core of the city. And then fast forward to working in government, and then my last job before this one, I got an opportunity to serve, and this was my dream job. It was on my vision board. It was a mental vision board. I hadn't written it out, but it was on my mental vision board, was to be the director of housing, because I felt like that was the place where I could have a lot of influence on how to directly help people in our community. And it was an amazing opportunity. And in April of this year, I moved over to become the president of Downtown Memphis Commission. And so that's just a little bit about me. I wanted you to know who I was before we began the presentation. And now we're going to dive in and talk a little bit about downtown. So one of our primary mantra for the Downtown Memphis Commission is creating a downtown for everyone. That means tourists, residents, everybody. We want everybody to be welcome in downtown Memphis. So I'm going to get this clicker working. And here we go. And so just a little bit about Downtown Memphis Commission. It is a quasi-government agency, so we are not a division of the city. However, we do a lot of work with both the city and county. And our funding comes from an assessment on commercial property owners. Many people think that we get an allocation from government. That's not true, actually. We have property owners, commercial property owners, whose value is assessed higher than $25,000 for their property. They pay an assessment. We call it the CBID, Central Business Improvement District assessment. And that assessment, think of it like an HOA fee. They pay that to our organization to provide the various services which we will talk about. And we're all about investment in downtown development, infrastructure, vibrancy, and activation. Our goal is to just create a strong downtown, because we know that the region goes as downtown Memphis goes. If we want to have a strong region, and that means all of Shelby County, Arkansas, Mississippi, all of DeSoto County, Crittenden County, Tipton County, all of them are dependent on the success of a strong downtown, because we are the living room. We are the place that is unique in that everybody feels ownership in downtown. It's everybody's neighborhood. And so we want to make sure that it's as strong and vibrant as can be. Sorry, I'm not sure where to click. All right, if somebody can just help me. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so here are our boundaries. So a lot of people don't realize that we also go into the medical district. So we go all the way up to the Wolf River on the north. Obviously, the river is our western boundary. We go down to roughly E.H. Crump, and then we go down Danny Thomas as the eastern boundary, but then we have an additional box from Danny Thomas over to Watkins, from Martin Luther King up to Poplar. So that's the medical district that's included. So all the commercial properties in that region pay that assessment that I talked about. All right, there we go. So we have 5 different entities that are a part of the Downtown Memphis Commission. We have the Center City Revenue Finance Corporation. So whenever you hear about large pilots, you hear that term pilots, tax freezes, tax abatements, those are done through the Center City Revenue Finance Corporation. We have a downtown parking authority, so there are a number of parking lots and garages that we actually manage. I like to remind people that we only control about 8% of the parking that's in that boundary. So a lot of people think that every garage you pull up to is managed by Downtown Memphis Commission. That is not true. Many of them are privately managed, but one of our goals is to do more so that we're coordinating with those private owners. So when we think about things about like pricing and how we ensure that we're keeping those spaces full, one of the biggest challenges we have when it comes to development is parking. Because in order to build something or get it financed, you must have access to parking spaces. And so we need to do a better job of collaborating amongst the many stakeholders that have parking. The Downtown Memphis Commission Board, which is the board that sets the vision. The Center City Development Corporation, many people don't realize this, but the pilots that are done by the Center City Revenue Finance Corporation are actually more expensive to the developer than other pilots. So other agencies in the city give out pilots. But with ours, we charge 1.5% of the total project cost. All of that funding goes into the Center City Development Corporation to provide grants and loans to small businesses. So we have a number of programs that I'll talk about that go to further activate downtown. And then lastly, the Design Review Board. So the Design Review Board reviews all signs in downtown before they're put up, as well as any publicly funded project must come before this. So if we give a pilot or we give a grant or loan for that development, they must come before the Design Review Board for approval. And we have our staff, and there are about 45 employees. I am sorry, this thing is a little tricky. It's going. Don't worry about it. So these are our programs. I just wanted to show them on one slide, and I won't go into the nuances of each, but if anybody has questions at the end, certainly I can go back to them. Pilot, I just referenced that one, payment in lieu of taxes. Some of you probably have heard of tax increment financing, TIFs. It's another way to finance projects, and just in short, the way a TIF works is you have a property with a baseline tax value. Once you build something on that property, say the baseline taxes are $100 a year. Once you build something on the property, taxes go to $1,000 a year. That $900 increment can be used, you put it into a bucket once you have an approved TIF, and that $900 can be used as debt financing. So the developer can now take out additional debt that's secured by that $900 in taxes that are generated from the thing that they build. So that's the quickest explanation for it. Garage financing, so we help finance private garages at low interest costs. Development loans, we give up to $200,000 for developers that are building in downtown, loans at a relatively low interest rate. Exterior improvement grant, so in certain parts of downtown, it can get up to $80,000 for exterior improvements. We do retail tenant improvement grants. The thing that makes downtown what it is are the people, are the businesses, and so we want to provide incentives for those businesses to keep coming in. So we have up to $30,000 that a retail tenant can apply for to move into various spaces. We have an award-winning program. We just received an award from the International Downtown Association for the South City Good Neighbor Grant. Many of you know about the work at South City where the Foot Homes development was located. It's now Foot Park at South City. But in addition to renovating the housing, what we wanted to do was figure out how do we make the area around the housing more vibrant as well. And so we created a new grant fund to help those small businesses and property owners renovate their properties as well. And then we do downtown pre-development assistance. And so a lot of times you have property owners who may have a vision but not necessarily know how to get there. So we take a small amount of money and we work with a set group of architects and designers to help get something on paper to help those property owners really map out their vision in a more distinct way. And so how do we measure our success? Two big factors: more people and higher property values. And so these metrics show, this is pre-pandemic numbers. We had about 26,000 residents in downtown Memphis, 88,000 daytime population. And these, metric number 2, this is the appraised property values per acre. If you look at the rest of the city or county, it's around 200,000 in the city for the appraised property values per acre. But if you look downtown, it's 1 million per acre, which you would expect given the density and higher value structures in downtown. And we want to see that number continue to grow on both sides. So here are our pillar activities. Many of you that have been downtown for many years have probably seen the Blue Suede Brigade. These are our men and women that serve as our ambassadors throughout downtown. They are our eyes and ears. If someone our brothers and sisters that are experiencing homelessness, if they are in need of help, they can help direct them to where they need to go to get services, but they also serve as a security feature. So if something is happening or going awry in the community downtown, then they won't necessarily, they will respond to the scene, but they're going to call the police. They're not going to be the ones to intervene, but they are the ones to quickly get eyes on the situation and alert the police when the need arises. Clean and green, so we have a team of 3 people, and we also contract with Hospitality Hub to help keep downtown clean. And we know that we have a lot of work to do in this space, but they do a lot of work with their small team. And you know, if you walk down Main Street and you see all the different planters, and if you see men and women out picking up trash and things in the morning, they are part of our clean and green team. And actually our Blue Suede Brigade also chips in on that. Community building, these are all the programs that I just talked about, the grants and loans, the things that we do to promote growth. One of the things that we're also thinking about in this space is how do we increase minority and women-owned business participation in this space. We're a city that is 65% African American, and if we are going to ever take our city to where we want to go, we have to find ways to get more people to participate in the billions of dollars being circulated in the downtown economy. And so that's something that we have made a priority. And then lastly, our other big area is activation. We like to activate various spaces in downtown, get people coming down here for different events and activities. You may see things like Food Truck Thursday or yoga in the park. During the spring, we had some activations with the Grizzlies where we did various watch parties during the playoffs. Anything we can do to just enhance the vibrancy of downtown, that's what we would like to do. And so I kind of went over all these things. I was supposed to click through them, so I'll still just touch on them quickly. So these are just some stats. We have about 30 members of our Blue Suede Brigade, and they cover the entire Central Business Improvement District, which is not small. And so that team covers a lot of ground. They do it on foot and on bike, and they have I'm forgetting what you call the things with the 2 wheels that you ride around on. Segway, yes, that. So hospitality, safety, they serve in that function. Clean and green, so we do activate along Main Street. That was what we did last year. Lighting, I think they're doing it again this year, getting ready to kick that off. And then cleaning up all the planters, beautification, and we want to continue to push in this space. I talked a little bit about the activations, and so that's something where we want to make sure that downtown looks like Memphis, that people are coming down from all parts of the region, as well as engaging the tourists that obviously spend a lot of time in downtown. This is just mapping out, we included this just to show that when we track participation in events, you see it all across Shelby County. Everywhere there's a dot, those are zip codes where we've seen heavy representation at our various events. In community development, one program that I'll talk about here under community development that I didn't mention is the Open on Main program. This is a really cool program where, you know, one of the things that helps make downtown strong is having activated storefronts. When you're walking down the street and you walk past large areas of dead space, it doesn't make you feel safe. It doesn't make you feel like you're in a vibrant environment. And so one of the things we've begun to do over the past 5 to 10 years is we've begun to work with those property owners who have those vacant spaces, and we say, hey, we will actually pay you rent if you let us use this space, and then we go and find an entrepreneur or business that can use storefront space, and we pair them together. And so we do these pop-up activations in these storefronts. I think we have about 5 or 6 of them underway right now for about 6 months to a year. And so we're really excited about that program. It's something that adds vitality. We want to continue to see that and see more. I mentioned our work on the MWBE, Minority and Women-Owned Business side. One of the other things that we're beginning to do is encourage joint partnerships. It's really difficult when we start talking about how do you get more minorities and women invested in these large real estate deals, because they take equity on the front end. It's not just something that you can just do. You have to have some dollars to put in. But we do know that there are women and minorities that have enough money to do this. And so as the developers come to us, we push them to go and find people. And they're beginning to respond to that. And so the development teams that we're beginning to see have become more diverse, which we think is going to be better for Memphis in the long run. Many people don't realize that we actually manage Beale Street on behalf of the city. So Beale Street, every building on Beale Street is owned by the city. And each tenant in those spaces operate on a long-term lease. Downtown Memphis Commission has formed a subsidiary entity called Beale Street Management that actually manages the street. So we take care of any of the issues, all of the day-to-day upkeep of the street and coordination of various events, including the renovation of Handy Park, which hopefully you've gotten an opportunity to check out. But we want to continue to keep Beale Street as a vibrant asset for our downtown. Just to touch on some of the catalytic projects, and then I'll get to some questions and answers, and any question is fair game, so don't be shy. But there are a number of major projects underway. The walk at Union Road, you've been hearing about it for many years. It's getting ready to happen. We had a very good meeting with that team the other day, and things are coming together, and so I am highly optimistic that near the top of the year, you're going to start seeing some construction action there. One build is already underway. You've probably seen the Hyatt Centric and the Hyatt Caption, which is being built immediately adjacent. The third hotel, Hyatt Grand, is nearing closing, so they're going to start construction on that at the top of the year as well. The FedEx Logistics headquarters completed right in time for the pandemic, so they have not returned to the office yet, but we are believing that they're going to come back at the top of the year, so we are super excited about that. And just to put a pin there, you know, one of the things that we are really excited about in the new year is the fact that many of our large offices are coming back, and so spaces like Terminix and AutoZone and FedEx, those are really, really critical for the vibrancy of downtown, because many of our small businesses are dependent on that lunchtime traffic. Like that's what generates their revenue. And so we're really excited about folks getting back to the office and getting on the other side of this pandemic that we've been in. The Pinch mixed use development been on the table for a while now, and we've been having conversations with those developers, and we do believe they are going to move forward. And even aside from those developers, if you see what St. Jude has been doing and the new patient housing facility that they're building and the billions of dollars that they expect to spend over the next 5 years in staffing and capital expenditures, it's a really positive thing for downtown. And then the Snuff Mixed Use District, which is in the uptown area north of A.W. Willis along the harbor. South City, I mentioned this earlier because of my prior role, but I also want to just elaborate on the point that South City is really, really critical for downtown. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that as we grow as a community where it maintains diversity. Affordable housing is an important component to that. And so having high quality affordable housing units in what we call a mixed income environment is really, really positive. And projects like the Walk would not have been on the table but for the initiative that was taken to renovate and redevelop South City. And so I have a really cool video I can send you guys so you can see it. It's about 7 minutes. I won't try to play it here, but it's really, really compelling, and it tells the story of why that's such an important project for our community. We are involved with blight mitigation. So I include this slide just to reiterate that point. What we do is we identify properties that have been vacant for long periods of time. And one thing I can tell you is that any property that's been vacant for a long period of time, there is a story. And the story is usually that the owner wants more than the property is worth. That's usually the story. And it plays out in different ways. But if you can recall how Benchmark Hotel looked on the left side, where it was sitting in that state for many years, DMC said enough is enough, and they brought forth lawsuits to encourage the property owner to activate the space. And what resulted was the property owner ended up selling the property to someone that had already been trying to buy the property from them, but the lawsuits encouraged that to happen. And now we have the Canopy Hotel along Union, a beautiful hotel that really adds to the vibrancy of downtown. These are the types of wins that we like to see on the blight cases. Another one of those blight cases is 100 North Main. And so I know that everyone here is very knowledgeable about 100 North Main and how it's been vacant for quite some time. The city, in partnership with DMC, decided enough was enough, and we took action. And in this instance, we actually acquired the property. We acquired the property so that we could put it in the hands of a user that is going to redevelop it. And so it's really exciting. I want to thank the pastor for participating in these review committees. He can tell you how intense it's been. We had 11 amazing proposals. We've narrowed it down to 6. Our goal was to narrow it down to 4, but it was too hard. And so we narrowed it down to 6, and we're going to start doing additional conversations. And I like to not call them interviews for this next round because I want it to be a two-way dialogue where they're telling us what they want and we're telling them what we need to see. But we have to select from these 6 proposals a winner that will activate this property and take it to a much higher and better use that will benefit properties like here and all of the blocks around it. Certainly open to having more conversation around it. Just included this because I like to always reiterate that everything we do is about the people. A lot of times we get caught up in, and I say we, I mean our team, our staff, and people that work in this space, we get caught up in the deal and the numbers. But at the end of the day, it's about people and ensuring that we are creating a high quality environment for Memphians and tourists alike. All right, so that concludes the formal presentation, and I would love to entertain any questions that you all might have. And please come to the microphone, if you don't mind, so that our friends on the internet can hear us. Hello.
So you talk about low-income housing. Is there any plans to put a grocery store downtown?
I've never heard that question before. We talk about grocery stores quite a bit, and I definitely think there will be one. It's just a matter of time. A lot of the challenges in recent years have come down to what is the site where the grocery store will be located. There are a number of conversations about it. There are no concrete plans for a grocery store at this time. There's smaller grocery stores. I think there's one, I know there's one down on the southern end. I forget the name of it, but it's one opening up down there, about 8,000 square feet of space. And so it'll be comparable to Miss Cordelia's in Harbortown. In terms of a large grocery store, I think we're a couple of years away, but it's really just contingent upon the site and having a space that's conducive to it. You know, in Memphis, we hadn't gotten our big corporate entities to buy into the types of developments that we really need. So you'll see like a urban Target in some other cities where they have 2 floors of Targets. And that's the kind of development we need in downtown Memphis, and that's what we're pushing for. And our residential density is beginning to push us to where those types of things are going to be doable. So I am highly confident that it's going to happen, but I don't have a timeline for you, unfortunately. Other questions, thoughts, those online as well.
Hi, wondering, I'm excited about all the business development and the blight remediation. What are the plans around environmental care and being proactive with resources? Stormwater is an issue, and trees, things
Yeah.
like soil, things like that.
Yeah, so a lot of our sustainability efforts come through the development materials, and as developments are proposed to us, then we try to push them to use environmentally sustainable approaches, LEED certified buildings. Those, they score higher in our incentive matrix. We also are exploring opportunities to add green space in downtown. We're even looking at what we call the LID project, where it's between, if you know where how Danny Thomas runs, and it goes down under Madison, Monroe, Union. So between Union and Monroe, on Danny Thomas, putting a lid over it and making that green space and activating it. Those are the types of innovation and creativity that we're thinking about, so that we can continue to make it walkable, add trees, add that type of environmental sustainability that we want to make sure that we maintain. One of the good things for us is that we do have a number of high quality green spaces in downtown. If you look at our riverfront, if you look at Court Square or Church Park or Army and Navy Park, the Greenbelt Park on Mud Island, preserving those assets, and our forefathers did a good job of ensuring that our riverfront is always going to be forever green for and be accessible for residents of our community. And so I do think that we are on that path. There probably are some more strategies we could do around stormwater and creating corridors where we're adding those green strips so that we aren't using as much, so that that water is actually being put to good use. And so those are things that we've had discussions about in partnership with the city from a broader perspective. Yes, ma'am.
Like to hear you speak about the convention center.
Yes.
And the hotel proposed across from City Hall and that whole entity.
Yes, so Lowe's Hotel and the convention center. So the convention center is amazing, is an amazing win for our community. $200 million investment, where other cities are spending $500 million to build new convention centers. I believe we made a very sound investment by completely updating and renovating the convention center. If you recall, back when those discussions started, it started as a $65 million project. But the city said we need to go bigger. We need to do something that's really going to change the face of our convention space for the next 20 years and not just for the next 10. And so that project is completed. You're starting to see bookings take place now. Obviously the pandemic slowed things down, but those things are starting to pick up. The Lowe's Hotel is still under consideration by Lowe's. We are talking to them now about when it's going to take place. And so we're hopeful that by the end of this year, early part of next year, we will have some clarity with regards to their final plans. But hotel space is very important. The Hyatt Grand is going to be a major thing for downtown. And while it's not in direct proximity to the convention center, it does add to our convention viability. It's a 350-room luxury hotel. There's only 14 of them in the country, and it'll be right there on the riverfront. It will have meeting space. It's going to be an amazing amenity for downtown. The Peabody just came before our Center City Revenue Finance Corporation board this last week, and they are applying to do about $130 million worth of upgrades on the Peabody so that it is maintained as a crown jewel in downtown Memphis. And so I still believe, whether Lowe's happens or not, I still believe that we are going to be strong in the convention space and continue to get stronger. We've gotten a number of those boutique hotels, and those are great to have, but when it comes to conventions, What you need are large hotels so that you can get large room blocks, because the meeting planners don't want to have 20 hotels that they're having to work with. They want to work with one or two. And so that's why we are constantly pushing for large hotels. Yes, sir.
I've lived in 6 countries in 8 states, and we've met before.
Okay.
My question's this. In a way, Memphis is a little behind the rest of the nation. It doesn't seem like they have a green division. What I mean is solar panels, yeah, there's a few on Madison, but come on, really. Where's the wind turbines? There aren't any. You know, you can get a 10 megawatt wind turbine now. But in addition, you know, there's all this waste that's going out to the landfills. Mm-hmm. If you go to a lot of cities, San Diego's a good example, as where I was born and raised, they take their whole landfill and they turn it into mulch. And people can go out there and get a truckload for free.
Right.
And that increases, of course, the plant life, which increases the amount of oxygen you get in the air. And, well, anyway, you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything like that in Memphis at all, and I don't see that they want to do it. What about 929 Madison? Is it available?
929 Madison.
Yeah, I mean, a great hotel.
Is that the one next to, like in the medical district?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah, it's a
would be
perfect
great
location
hotel.
for a hotel. And I've contacted Cry-like and Soul, and they're all like, what, you don't want to make any money? Come on.
So I don't know the full story for 929, but I do recall in the past some other developers were looking at it. BioWorks had looked at it, and they were going to return it to a hotel, and there were some complications with the ownership. But I don't know the full story there. But I will speak to the green aspects of what you talked about. One of the things I left out of my bio that I actually served as the administrator for the Office of Sustainability for the city and county, and so that's probably where we met. And there are a number of initiatives around those green projects. We just have to take them to scale. So issues around solar, obviously that includes a lot of conversation with MLGW and TVA and how that power is directed back to the grid, because that's typically how solar panels work, is that you put up the panels and it goes back to the grid and you receive a credit on your bill for all of the power that's generated. My understanding from my time in sustainability was that we aren't great for wind. We are, just the level of wind that we have in our community. They have these. So what they have are these maps that show like what regions of the country are best for what renewables. And so the map that I'm talking about shows where the best locations for wind turbines are. And I'm thinking back like 7-8 years now, but they had a map that showed where the best locations for wind turbines are, and that's kind of the center of the country, the Oklahoma, northern part of Texas area. And for us, our advantage was around solar. And we weren't the best at solar, but it was where we had our greatest renewable energy advantage. And so I know that there are conversations about that. I hadn't been directly in those recently, but I know that we are thinking that way. And then lastly, I'll just speak to the recycling aspects. That has been something that the Solid Waste Division for the city has been focused on for many years. Things have changed in recent years with China getting out of the purchasing of commodities from the United States, and it's made it a lot more challenging. So a lot of the recyclable materials that we like to recycle don't necessarily have a market anymore, which has made it really, really challenging. So now you have a bunch of glass that's sitting in different locations and aluminum that's sitting in locations that aren't being able to be turned into the commodities like they were before. So it's been challenging, and hopefully some of those national conversations around trade will advance in a way that allows us to get back into that space at a bigger level.
I've lived in downtown Memphis since 2007, and I'm happy to report that DMC has really been a very positive factor and the quality of life and development down here. And just, I think it's very effective, and it's always led by somebody like you. It's a young, energetic person that's got a lot of ideas and bounces around the internet, comes up with new ideas. So, but anyway, I guess my question, I'm up here not just to praise you, but also ask you a question. But one other point, thanks for not going to LA, and thanks for your service.
No, thank you.
Is there anything in this infrastructure bill that's going to assist downtown Memphis? I wish you'd speak to that just quickly. And then also, what's going to happen to the old police station? I understand it's outside of scope for Lowe's now. So any thoughts on that? Thank you.
All right, so I'll answer the last part first and then come back to the first part. So on the police station, we are hopeful that the owner will sell it to someone with a development plan, and so we're doing a lot of outreach to figure out what that owner's plans are. And so I don't know if we will have an answer in the short term, meaning the next 2 to 3 months, but I'm hopeful that in the next 6 months we will. To the infrastructure question, I'm not quite sure what's in the bill, but I can tell you what we want out of the bill, and I'm pretty sure it'll be eligible. And I didn't mention this in my comments, and I should have, but we saw a really, really big win with that Ford electric vehicle manufacturing facility. It's 50 miles from downtown Memphis, and they are investing in the most up-to-date, the newest, highest technology manufacturing facility that has ever been developed in the country, ever. And it's 50 miles from downtown Memphis. And so they're going to be producing electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. And so one of the things that we are pushing for is for downtown Memphis to become the test bed for all of this different technology. And so in order to do that with autonomous vehicles, what happens is these vehicles, they communicate via either a cell tower, or if you're in an area where you have high Wi-Fi coverage, so you have corridors with like these small cells on all of the poles. So the car is connected to the internet basically the whole way the whole time that it's driving. Our goal is to have downtown Memphis become the smart city, the space where we have so much technology. When you walk outside, there's public Wi-Fi. We have trash cans that have compactors, solar compactors that communicate, and they can tell you when the trash can is full and needs to be emptied. Where we have cameras that are looking at various spaces on the street where you can tell where on-streets parking is, and you can look on your phone and you know I can go park at Adams in Maine because there's a space right here for me, and it's very close to Calvary Church. Those are the types of things that we are thinking about now, and I do believe that this infrastructure bill is going to help us get there when we start talking about this smart city technology. And this is something that we are looking at in the relatively short term. We're already having conversations with the city around this. The city has allocated about $22 million for broadband and smart city efforts. And so I believe you're going to start seeing some of this work really, really soon. And our hope is that when we look at this infrastructure bill, there's even more dollars that we can apply for that will be able to go towards that mission.
I got a question. Thanks, Paul. This is really good. You mentioned earlier your work, and even before you're at the commission, especially with affordable housing. And I know that I really appreciate the way I've talked with Brett and with you, that you really take seriously the ethical piece of all of this. And what we know is that development, there has to be this concern for who gets pushed out and how does it stay available for small businesses and to people. Gentrification gets thrown around pretty quickly to say that, if you just leave that building empty, then it doesn't bring up property values, so more people, anyway, it's probably not the best approach. Right. Can you just talk something about how you hold that balance of bringing property values up and keeping a broad cross-section available so that the city maintains both the in an ethical way and also just an interesting way? We also hear about places like Greenwich Village in New York where it's like, it's not funky anymore because it's just millionaires living there.
Right.
How do you all talk about those things?
Yeah, we talk about it quite a bit, and it's something that we definitely need to be cognizant of. And I'll try to answer this in short. You know, when you think about development, on one hand, it's relatively simple. You have a property, and it will cost X to activate this property. You got to buy it, you got to renovate it, and there's a cost to that. In many areas of Memphis, not just downtown, the numbers don't work, meaning that if I buy it and I renovate it, it may cost me $100,000. But when it's time to sell it, I can only sell it for $60,000. That's a deal that nobody wants to take. So that's where government has to intervene. The example I'm giving is more about a single family house, but you can apply it to multi-million-dollar building. You either have to sell it you can only sell it for $60,000, or if you're renting it out, then you have to rent it at a rate. In order to make your money back, you need to charge $1,000 a month. But the market says you can only charge $600 a month. Same problem. So somebody has to come in and cover that gap. That's why you have to have programs like the pilot program, where, you know, if you're doing a rental property, what a pilot does is you have all these costs that you have to pay back on a rental property. You got to pay back your debt. You got to pay back your equity. You have to pay your property taxes. If you can reduce one of those, then you can keep your rents lower. And so that's why you have the pilot program, so you can reduce those property taxes. But what we ask for in return with our pilot program is, if we're going to give you this tax break, then you must include at least 20% of your units must be affordable. And so what does that mean? We define affordable as 80% of what they call the area median income. And so for a family of 4 in Memphis, that's going to be roughly around $52,000. So for many, that's still not affordable. There are many families that don't make that. And so that's why you need projects like South City, where you have units that go to families that earn 30% of the area median income or less. But in order to qualify for that, you must have public housing. Public housing is very, very challenging. You have 8,000 vouchers, but you got a waiting list of another 8,000 people. And so for us in downtown Memphis, we try to maximize the incentives and tools to create enough affordable housing, but we also just have to figure out how do we strengthen it. One of the things I'm thinking about now as we review our pilot program, you know, what developers tend to do when they get our pilot is they say, all right, 20% of our units have to be affordable, so we have 100 units, so I'm gonna do 20 units that are studio apartments, and we'll just charge, you know, whatever the minimum amount is for that. That other cities, the way they do it in other cities, they say, no, it's not 20% of the 100, it's 20% of each unit type. So if you have 20 one-bedrooms, then 20% of those, 22 bedrooms, 20% of those, and you're actually spreading it out, because that's when you have the true dynamic of, you know, the affordability where people can actually afford the spaces. And so what we have to do in order to try and stave off gentrification, because there's some level of price increase that needs to happen in order to get projects to work. And so what we have to do is say, all right, when do we reach that equilibrium in downtown? At what point is it such that you don't need an incentive anymore because you're charging so much? And then after you get an incentive, can we cap how much you can charge? Can we say, all right, well, if you're going to charge $4 a square foot, then we need to get some of the profit so they can be reinvested in other programs to help other areas of downtown. Those are the types of things that we're thinking about, but it's a really, really difficult balance when you're trying to activate these buildings and costs are going up every day. I mean, if you talk to construction folks, I think I saw something from the Fed that said it's 6.5% increase. If you talk to construction folks, they're gonna tell you 20 to 30% increase in their materials. And so as these increases are taking place, income, this is the other piece that I'll say, and this is my HCD soapbox. We talk about affordable housing a lot, and we talk about it in the sense of being able to reduce the cost of the housing unit. What we also need to be thinking about is how do we grow the other side of the equation, which is people's income, because affordability is relative. If you make more, you can pay for more. And so the costs are going up on construction and rent. We need to figure out how do we get the other side of the equation to go up, and how can we get more people in our community to be able to participate in our economy. And so that's job training, it's skills, it's higher wages. All of those things are a part of this formula for how we, I know I didn't directly answer the question, but you know, all of these things are so interrelated. It's tough to give just one crisp answer to how we do it. But our safeguard is to ensure that we are baking in affordability in the incentives. That's the short answer.
So thank you. This is really interesting. So I don't know how many churches or other faith communities are in downtown. Obviously, Calvary is. I'm wondering if you have thoughts on, you know, given your background, what faith communities in downtown could be doing to make it a better place for people. You know, things that maybe we aren't doing or could be doing better. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to applaud Calvary. And I'll say it the way my parents would say it, is the church just has to be the church. And I mean, what Calvary does is amazing. And the work that you do with people, whether it's providing clothes, food, shelter, all the things that you're doing are the things that we need the church to continue to do. Because when you think about the ecosystem of support, the city's only going to be able to do so much. The quasi-governmental agencies like DMC, there's only so much, and we have to have as many partners as possible to help fill the gaps and the voids. And so if we had more churches doing what you're doing, I think you would see more people moving out of that short-term experience of homelessness. And that's how I like to talk about homelessness, is as a short-term experience and not as a definition of a person. And that was something that I used to do, is say that's a homeless person. It's a person that's experiencing homelessness, and not using their short-term situation as the defining characteristic for them. And I think this church embraces that. I know that I used to come here to vote and do all kinds of things, like making the church the hub of where people come and gather for information, even, you know, opportunities like this to share information, to build up stronger citizens in our community. This is what the church should be about, and I think this church does it, and I'm sure there are others that do it, but I think this is the model.
I've got a question from Ted online here, and he says, if you could say a word or two about the St. Jude potential parking garage in Uptown. Do you have any say on that or any thoughts?
Yeah, so I've seen it. I've seen a little bit of pushback. I do know St. Jude is an amazing institution that's doing some great things in our community, and as they grow, they need parking. And so I understand the residents' concern about the look and whether it's going to detract from, you know, future property values. I look at it as the pain of progress, and this is something that we deal with in other parts of the city. In order to be a big city like we ambition towards, you need those types of parking facilities. Now, whether it's the right design, I won't get into all of whether it's the right design or whether things can be amended. I think there is a path for it to coexist in that community. And I know the folks over at St. Jude, and I know that they're open to collaborating and working with the community. And so I am hopeful that that situation will iron itself out.
I think you've done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
But I know that for many people, homelessness is a short term, but for others, it's a lifetime.
Right.
So my question is, what are your Blue Suede Brigade people, what are they saying about the long-term people, the ones for nothing seems to work?
Yeah, we do have a few that, you know, have been out here for years, and you know, you and I actually talked about this as well before we started, that there has to be an ecosystem of support. And we've seen some significant wins in recent years with Room in the Inn and Collins Chapel and what they're doing with their respite care facility. We've seen Hospitality Hub and the space that they're building. I think that the biggest gap now is figuring out how we continue to support those that are experiencing mental illness. And so those are the tougher conversations, because those are the folks that no matter what you tell them, they aren't able to move off of the streets. And so we have to find some ways to get some more investment in that space. And I think that's a bigger citywide, state, and federal challenge.
And we're working on that, aren't we?
And we are, we are. I see Zach walking up. I know we're at our time, 10:10, so I want to thank you guys for having me. This has been amazing, and anytime you need us, please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank y'all for joining us today. I'm sure Paul will stick around for a few minutes if you have questions that you didn't get out, and we hope to see you next week. So thanks for joining us today.